This week is another example of me having the good fortune of sitting down with an awesome friend and having a conversation about their burgeoning business. Often the feedback from these episodes involves some version of, I love these podcasts because I feel like I'm right there with you, drinking a beer with you guys. Well, good news. Matt DelVecchio and I did just that as we discussed the origin story and the ins and outs of his company, Duckfoot Brewery, which is based right here in San Diego. Matt starts by schooling us on the different scales that define beer and where hazy IPAs fall on those scales, and how a particular wedding gift changes life. Matt is actually my former neighbor in the Leucadia area of Encinitas, California. I moved, he didn't, and I've had the pleasure of literally tasting his success as his beer business has grown over the last 6 years. We talk about his New York beginnings, his move to San Diego to start the brewery, the creativity behind the brand, and Matt makes a solid case for leaving your surfboard at home and taking a hand plane instead. We wrap things up with some insight into Matt's participation in a Fish cover band and a heartfelt story about a family-owned Jeep Cherokee, which I was super excited to hear. All that and more in this week's episode. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the STANDARDH podcast.
Cheers, Mr. Wesley.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for taking the time, sir.
Nice to be able to have a beer and hang out.
As I say, lay down a track.
Let's lay down a track on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay, so you were about to edumacate me on the bitterness scale versus the color scale, I guess, of beers.
Well, so the SRM is the scale that you use to judge like how light or dark a beer is.
Right. What does that stand for?
I forget. It's been a while.
Okay.
You can omit that.
That's fine. SRM, figure it out.
And then you could Google it.
Google it. Yeah.
And then there's the bitterness scale, and the bitterness will tell you like how hoppy a beer is. So like, you know, your blonde ales or your pilsners are like very not very hoppy, and then like, you know, your pale ales are hoppier, and then your IPAs or your double IPAs or your triple IPAs, or the hazy IPA, which is where this all started from, which was where does that fall in the whole scale. So the hazy IPAs are and forgive me, am I going too deep down the beer?
That's what these things are all about.
Okay.
Information.
Okay. So the hazy IPAs are a twist on the traditional like West Coast IPA, right? Where West Coast IPAs were like very bitter and also have like a nice like floral and aromatic notes as well, but they were like also brewed to be very bitter, and especially like here in San Diego, like for a while there, it was like the contest to see who could make the most bitter beer possible.
Yeah, I feel like Stone Brewing is kind of the arbiter of that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they led the way, and then these breweries on the East Coast started going a different direction, and they started pulling back on the bitterness and using the hops in just to accentuate like the kind of like the floral and aromatic notes, and so and then you know, they also started using this like hazy yeast, and the beers kind of have like a little bit of a different mouthfeel too, but on the going back to the IBU scale, which is the bitterness scale, the hazy IPAs are very low IBU wise, so they're not supposed to be bitter, and they are supposed to be like strictly like get your nose in the glass and smell the aromatics. You can taste like the fruitiness. It's and so the additions of hops are usually done at like flame out, like at the end of the boil, and a lot of dry hopping and that kind of thing. So for people who want to drink an IPA but who aren't in love with
The bitterness.
The bitterness. Hazy IPAs are a great place to start because you can, usually try a beer, and they're very approachable, man. I mean, they're fun to drink.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm drinking. We just did a Nelson IPA, a hazy IPA called My Cousin Nelson. I know it's a funny name. It's a take on My Cousin Vinny.
Well, okay, so we're gonna go into this because I want to ask you how you guys name your beers.
Okay,
but we'll get into that. But yeah, My Cousin Vinny, phenomenal movie.
so we
I just think of Marissa Tomei when she's described was a Bambi by the water, and then bang, like it's just like that whole scene is hilarious.
That's a good memory, dude. So, I mean, I hadn't seen the movie in years, but one of our my best friend from high school is does most of our illustrations, and he's super creative. He's got a design firm in Brooklyn, and he's and I'm that's where I'm from, and so. He's not necessarily in the beer community, so he comes at it with like a different approach, and so sometimes we'll name our beers in house, and sometimes we're like we'll task Brian with coming up with something good. So he usually says all right, give me the hops and the beer style, and what are we going for, and so we'll give him all that stuff, and then he'll come at us with like a couple of ideas. So we thought this one was really funny because it was a play on the movie title, and then it illustrates the important part of this IPA is the Nelson hop, which is a Southern Hemisphere hop, and it's got a picture of a kiwi on it, on the label, and
Okay.
so it's My Cousin Nelson. The Nelson hop is like one of the hardest hops to get, and so usually if the beer, like the super hardcore craft beer people, like if they see this beer has Nelson on it, it's usually like a must buy.
So it's the cashmere of
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
of hops. So is it Nelson? Like I know was it Nelson, British Columbia in Canada, right? So aren't like West Coast hops oftentimes Pacific Northwest, or am I making this up?
No, you're right. Yeah, a lot of the hops come from the Pacific Northwest.
So what is Nelson? Where is that? I mean, if it's Kiwi,
It's
is it
New
New Zealand?
Zealand. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was
And they're
not Canada.
No, but I didn't know. Yeah, but I mean, most of the hops, like a lot of the West Coast hops, West Coast IPA hops are all from like the Northwest. Right. So like mainly like Washington and Oregon, and they're hops being grown all over the place now. But anyway, the Nelson hops though are Southern Hemisphere hops, so they're from New Zealand. Their harvest season is
Opposite ours.
So it's cool. So like half the year you're using fresh hops from the U.S. and then the other half of the year, if you can get them, you can use a lot of hops from New Zealand and the Nelson hop. There's like one farm that's like growing it, and they specifically only grow a limited amount, so they're hard as hell to get.
I got it. So is that by design that you would source them from those areas so that it's fresher year round, or is that not the approach? Is it just kind of not coincidental, but just incidental maybe?
I think incidental.
Right. So for those of you listening, welcome Matt DelVecchio
Thank you.
to the podcast. A nice little run in there for us. You're from New York.
Yes.
You alluded that.
We just kind of went into it, didn't we?
Yeah, sometimes I like to, just because it just keeps it flowing and casual, and it calms the nerves, I guess, by the time we get around to questioning the interrogation. What did your parents do?
So my father was in the insurance business. He ran meetings for New York Life Insurance Company. He was there for like 46 years.
Oh, pension, the whole deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
cool.
So he did that, and then he also sat on the board of a like a coffee company, and then did that for his most of his career too. So I got kind of exposed to both, like, business, finance, and manufacturing along the way. And then my mom, she was a like a what do you call it, a CEO's
Like executive assistant.
thank you, executive assistant. So she worked for all these like high powered guys, and that had these huge companies and stuff like that. And but I actually have a kind of interesting, they split, and my dad remarried, and my stepmother, she was Clint Eastwood's casting director.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I also had this like weird like little like
Attachment to Hollywood.
yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Well, I mean, obviously you had like the interesting exposure, like you were just saying, like manufacturing, all that stuff with coffee and whatnot. What made you go the beer route versus coffee, having seen coffee? Because that's a high margin product, right?
Yeah,
It's a good business model.
I'll tell you what, I love to drink a cup of coffee, but it's not my passion.
I see. Okay, so passion.
Yeah,
Which
I think
is-
that was
which
like
is
really
crucial.
like important. Yeah, and like like you gotta be,
You gotta like what you're doing.
for it to be successful and for you to feel like it's not a job, right? So I think I went to art school, left art school completely unequipped to make a living. I tried my best to be a graphic designer. I did okay at it, but it wasn't my passion.
Where'd you go to school?
The Maryland Institute College of Art.
Oh, okay.
And I'm incredibly thankful for the creative education I got, and I feel like it's helps me every day. But like for a little bit there, like I was not really sure what to do, and I had to kind of create my way. But I ended up going into financial services because I think I wanted to make more money, and I thought I'd be more interested in it. But it turns out like that wasn't really my calling either.
Right.
And I did the financial services thing for a little over 10 years.
Was that like the cubicle deal or?
No, it was not. I mean, I did have a cubicle for sure, at least when I first started. But the nice thing about financial services was that you weren't supposed to be in the office. You were supposed to be out meeting with your clients,
Golfing and things.
yeah, and networking and doing that. So that really fits my personality. And so, no 1 week was ever the same. I was, traveling and meet all over the place. And it was like wherever I could network and find somebody that wanted to work with me, I could go. So I was, all the way up in Vermont or Massachusetts or Maine or Florida or, Colorado or even California. And it had a lot of pros and cons, and the money was good. The creativity wasn't fulfilling, I mean, there's certainly creative ways to
You can like
money.
create a creative like pitch, so to speak, and
Yeah.
like creatively establish relationships, I'm sure, but like the product wasn't your creation, thus it
Exactly.
wasn't creative.
And that's the thing is I really wanted to create my own product.
Yeah, totally.
And so I thought, let me try, getting into manufacturing and making something, because, I went to art school. I was like into making things,
Yeah.
And so I thought, how fun would it be to like make something that people were really interested in, and I could, continually like create products that were sold, and so I was like, okay, well, what am I interested in, and craft beer was budding at the time. I mean, this was like 15 years ago or something.
Yeah, I was gonna
that
say
when I
like
first-
early 2000s.
Yeah, when my wife and I got married, my one of my groomsmen, in our wedding, and he was like, "What do you want for your wedding?" And I was like, "How about a home brewing kit?" And he didn't really love his job either. And I had this like dream. I was like, maybe, you know, he'll get me this home brewing kit. We'll both like learn to make beer and like fall in love with making beer, leave our jobs and like create this business. So, you know, he was like, really, dude? Like, you want to, like, what's your wife going to say? And I was like, dude, we got enough like candlesticks. Like, what the hell? Like, you know, so we ended up, brewing a couple beers together. And it turns out he was like, you know, he got really into it more than I did at first. And then it turns out like I kept up with it and he was like, oh, this is just too much work and too much hassle. But
Right.
like, I was ready to like, oh, I think we could turn this into something. But I was like, you know, I took my graphic design background and like I started like making labels and came up with a name. And then, you know, I was looking around for like real estate and trying to come up with like a business plan and the whole thing.
So this was all happening
On the East Coast.
in New York.
Yeah.
So where were you living at the time?
I was living in Westchester County.
Okay, so just north of the city.
Yes. Yeah. I'm from a town called Larchmont. So originally it was going to be like Larchmont Brewing Company, which was not very exciting. And
Sounds very country club.
Yeah. Yeah. And
far from Duckfoot, which is like,
yes, totally.
We'll get to the name.
Yeah. So you know, we were looking around for real estate and then, you know, Katie and I weren't sold on living in the East Coast. Like it just, you know, we realized that once you commit to like building out like a brewery, like you're there for life because you don't just move, you know.
So that's interesting. So for those listening, Matt and I used to live 200 yards away, maybe 100 yards away from one another. And I didn't realize, so you moved here to launch this business.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
Yes. 100%.
Interesting.
And at the time when we moved here and to San Diego, there were only, like probably 60 breweries.
Yeah. Now there's over 120.
Well, we signed our lease, built out the brewery. And by the time we opened up 8 months later, we were the 100th brewery to open in San Diego.
Holy smokes.
So like 40 or something like that opened up in the 8-month period. And then when we celebrated our 3-year anniversary, there were like 220 operating breweries in San Diego.
Oh, forgive me. I guessed half that.
Yeah.
What music were you into in high school?
In high school, I started with you know, my uncle, whose record collection we're being flanked by right now. This is like 2,000 something records.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, he turned me on to everything because when I was a little kid, he used to just play tons of different music for me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I knew all these bands like when I was like, you know, in like 4th and 5th grade. And so, you know, he played me stuff that, like Frank Zappa, you know, he turned me on to like AC/DC and Black Sabbath and,
so he must have been
Led
kind
Zeppelin
of a younger uncle then, I guess.
Yeah, he was young at heart too. So
Because my dad, you know what my favorite band was when I was 4?
What?
Deep Purple.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, because of my dad's record collection.
Should we play some Deep Purple
after this?
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And just as a side note, Led Zeppelin 1, the closest thing I've ever been to being murdered was by my father. When I was 2 years old, I smeared peanut butter and banana on his record collection.
Oh, Jesus.
So imagine peanut butter in the grooves.
Oh, forget it, man.
To this day, Led Zeppelin 1 skips.
Yeah, because
And
there's chunks of...
There's dried up peanut butter in those grooves, man.
Yeah, man, but it probably felt really good as a kid, right?
I was too, yeah. Fortunately, I don't remember because I have no idea what actually took place.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a subconscious element there somewhere along the way. But what was your first album that you ever bought with your own money? Because I see mine on your shelf.
You're going to laugh, but
That you paid for with your own money.
Oh, that I paid for with my own money.
What was the first album you ever bought? And this like parallels a theory I have that the music someone listens to in high school is the music they will never be sick of throughout their life.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. The first this was going back to tapes, but like,
Sure. Yeah. It could be whatever.
it was my first tape was the Monkees.
No
Greatest
way.
Hits.
You
Yeah.
bought the Monkees.
Yeah. And then I followed that up with Run DMC Raising Hell.
Okay, yeah, that dichotomy is is something else. I've done 65 episodes so far, and that is by far the winner for like the spectrum of music taste, especially like informative years. That's incredible. Okay, so you leave the financial world. You plan to start a brewery. You don't like the East Coast weather, I'm assuming. 72 and sunny year round sounds pretty good, I would imagine.
Totally. And it's way less congested. I mean,
Right, because you're near the city.
yeah. And I was working in Midtown Manhattan and
Taking the train in.
yeah,
every day.
commuting in and out.
Right.
I mean, when I didn't start that way, I started living in the city, and then my wife and I got married, moved out of the city, and then we got in the burbs, and we were like, totally should not have been in the burbs, and that led us to like doing everything we could to get out of the burbs, but it was usually trying to go and find, on a quest to find nature.
Sure.
And so we started by going up to Vermont and going snowboarding, and so we rented a place up in Vermont by Stratton, and
Sweet.
we were doing like, I think the year before we left, I had like 70 or 80 days on the mountain because we were going up so much, and we were like, wait, why do we live in New York City? Like we can go move somewhere else and enjoy life
Right.
more. And so we did that, and we were searching, and I was on those drives is when like all this the Katie and I would drive 3 hours up, 3 hours back, and we had plenty of time to like hash out like all these
The future plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So
Okay, so obviously, as you described, the company's called Duckfoot Brewing, but you kind of specialized in gluten-reduced beers.
that totally came by happenstance.
Really?
Happenstance.
Happenstance.
So
But it was a chance that happened.
yeah. And it was the stance that made it all possible.
Right, exactly.
So the idea came about on the way up to Vermont, where I was like, we were going into the ski bars after, and the après ski scene is like my favorite. Like I love being like working out all day on the mountain, like just having fun skiing, and then you come in at the end of the day and it's like 4:00 and there's a band going in the bar, and there's you order some wings and have a beer, and like it's the best.
I can see it and smell it now.
Yeah. But like I was in a craft beer, but there were no craft beer. There was no craft beer being sold. That's where the idea came for Duckfoot, which was like,
Right.
Let's start a brand marketed towards this like snowboarding community, and we'll get it into all the après ski bars in like the Northeast.
So so did that actually happen?
No, it didn't. That was the original idea.
What got in the way?
I think then,
Or was it the idea of moving, so then you're away from mountain towns?
well, so Katie and I were like all about starting the brewery, but then once we got into the idea of actually starting the brewery, we were like, maybe we should, build the brewery in a place where we want to live year round, and then get it to the mountain towns. So, somebody introduced us to San Diego, and we came out for a weekend and like fell in love.
So I'm drinking the Kook Slams, which is the West Coast style IPA. I mean, this beer's one of my favorites that you guys do.
It's our number one seller.
Yeah. Okay. So the Kook Slams is it's your best seller.
I mean, it is my favorite IPA.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the gluten reduced thing though.
Yeah.
So how did that, all right, happenstance? Yes. However, it kind of became what you guys stood for too, or do you guys market that? Or is it just kind of a byproduct of your beer?
So back when I was, we kind of like skipped over this little part of my history, but like
That's okay.
when I was back on the East Coast, and this was before we moved out here, and I was home brewing, and then I started getting sick, and I had all kinds of health issues, and it was getting worse and worse and worse, and then my wife, who's very she's into nutrition, and she was she's very perceptive to what goes in your body and how it affects you, where I'm kind of oblivious to
I don't
it.
think that way either.
And
what were your symptoms?
I'll try to keep it PG for the podcast.
Sure.
But, I had a lot of like gastrointestinal issues, and so a lot of like uncomfortable, like bloating and stuff, and a lot of fatigue, man. Like I would leave for the office in the morning in New York City. I get on the train, and I think I had like 5 cups of coffee, and I'd be like tired, almost like asleep at my desk at like 8 a.m. Like it was like just getting to the office. I was so exhausted. So I went to the doctor and, got scoped in 8 million different directions and stuff. And I was ended up being diagnosed celiac disease, and, or I should say being diagnosed with celiac disease. And that was, kind of like the death blow to the me starting thing. The brewery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everything kind of went on pause for a little bit. And when I was really down in the dumps, because I really it
was your dream, man.
Yeah, it was my dream. And
literally the rug got swept out.
I felt like, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And then all of a sudden it was kind of like taken away from me. And my wife, to her credit, was like, come on, get off your ass, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and go develop the best gluten-free beer in the marketplace.
If you haven't heard episode 1 of the STANDARDH podcast, then let me tell you about my friend Tim Jackson. As owner of Passion Fine Jewelry, Tim and his team specialize in fine jewelry, as well as some of the finest independent watch brands available. I'm talking about Groenfeld, Habring, Kudoki, Roger Smith, Roman Gauthier, Sarpaneva, the list goes on. The staff at Passion Fine Jewelry is literally made up of friends and family, so you will feel right at home if and when you visit. If California is out of reach, you can absolutely email or call the shop and they'll get you sorted. Visit passionfinejewelry.com for more information. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of using the right product for the right job, and like many of you, I appreciate products with a story. That's why I drive a Volkswagen GTI. It's a hot hatch with heritage. It's also why I'm into specific watches like my Tudor Black Bay. And that's exactly why I'm a fan of the indie accessory brand Cantonment. Cantonment makes a utilitarian cloth they simply call a kerchief. It's smaller than a standard bandana, but larger than a handkerchief, which makes it ideal to tuck in a back pocket or use as a neckerchief. I always take one on a bike ride or have one with me as a backup face covering. Not only do these kerchiefs satisfy several functions, but they look great too. Each set features illustrations celebrating icons of product design like the Omega Speedmaster, the Fender Stratocaster, or my favorite of course, a classic GTI. Follow them on Instagram at Cantonment Co. That's CantonmentCo, or visit them at cantonment.co. And use the code STANDARDH in all caps, no spaces, for 20% off of absolutely everything in their online shop. Now let's get back to the show. We touched on it earlier, but so how do you exactly name your beers? It sounds like there's an equation, right? So you got, was it Brian?
Yeah.
You said, so Brian is your graphic designer, and you give him the types of hops, you give him the type of beer, and say the taste profile. Is that right?
That's what we do sometimes.
Okay. So Kook Slams is what I'm drinking.
Yeah. So
it's very surf centric, right? So for those who listen, a kook is somebody that's just kind of like, well, I don't know, because it's all colloquial, right? A Barney, or like somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. A newbie. Somebody that, yeah. Yeah, there's all these like the jargon, right, of surf culture. But like, so it's a kook, and usually Kook Slams, which incidentally is an amazing Instagram handle that everybody should follow, Kook Slams, because
Yeah.
it's quite entertaining.
Well, I mean that name was easy because that beer came from us doing a collaboration with that Instagram handle.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so that
Oh, I had no idea. So
that-
there's like this massive wave breaking on this guy who's literally standing on the sand with 1 foot on a Segway, chugging what appears to be a beer with a couple of palm trees and then like old bones sticking out of the sand as if somebody had died there.
yeah, and he's about to get wiped out, right?
So obviously the whimsical approach to beer naming and labeling, for that matter, is abundantly clear with your brand. Is this like a we just don't take life seriously kind of approach? Is it it's funny, right? But it's also branding. So where does this come from? Is this Brian or is this everybody?
Well, in this particular case, I mean, you know, we dialed up Kook Slams on the. I think we sent them a facsimile to see if they wanted to do a collaboration with us, and they responded and said, "Let's do a beer together." And then and we've been rocking out ever since with that beer.
So what's the relationship? Not interrupting you.
With them?
Did they share R&D costs? Did they?
No,
do they get a royalty?
Yeah, they get a royalty. Yeah, we pay them a royalty. Yeah, for
Interesting.
the use of the name and stuff like that. And they do some promotion for us and stuff like that.
Cool.
It's just fun. I mean, the whole thing was like, you know, I just wanted the brand to be fun and lighthearted and collaborative and
So it's a you thing.
I would say a fair amount of the beers we do are from my creative direction. Now that the team's getting bigger, that's changing a little bit, but we are definitely like which is good because I led us into this like whole surf skate kind of scene, and that's been great for the brand. But we've also been dabbling in music.
Cool.
And
which is also very you.
Which is, I guess, as we're surrounded by all the music equipment. But my contributions are to the brand are usually on the creative side. I'm not there brewing and doing I'm not there on the 9 to 5 or even 9 to 9 hours that a lot of our brewing team is, and I'm very thankful for the hours that they put in and all of the hard work because they realize my creative ideas, and or now I should say are the team's creative ideas, and it's we're smoking with I love our team, man.
That's awesome.
We just had on this past Monday we had a staff or team appreciation day.
Oh, cool.
We closed the brewery down and had everybody over to my house here.
Oh, amazing.
And we got it catered and had a couple kegs, and then we all went down and went body surfing together down at Beacons.
Sweet.
And
so how many people are on staff now?
It's a good question. Probably like 14 or 15 or so.
That's great.
Yeah.
So meetings like today, you said that you had meetings like pretty much all day. How many people are in the room and how often do you guys have those meetings?
Well, today I went down to have a merchandise meeting, and then I walked into the meeting, and then our head brewer was sitting there, and then I said, guys, I think we need to do an Oktoberfest. And normally stuff is way more planned out,
Yeah, because you got 8 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But like, the issue was COVID threw everything upside down. It wasn't until like a couple of months ago that we were even allowed to be open, right? So like, long-term planning went out the window. So there was like all everything was for the last year and a half was short-term planning, like survive, pivot, survive, open the restaurant, close the restaurant, open. You can be inside, you can be outside. You need to serve food. You don't need to serve food. People need to wear masks. People don't need to wear masks, and like, so like we weren't doing like, you know, like what's Oktoberfest going to be? What's our
right. Like
what,
strategically
yeah,
planning.
like it all went out the
It's
window.
reactionary.
Yeah. So
Right.
So now we're like trying to catch up and get going again, and yeah, we're like always. It feels like we're perpetually on our heels, but
Which I'm sure as a business owner is kind of disconcerting.
it is what it is, man. You know what? We're doing better than we ever have.
Yeah. What are the metrics you guys look at?
So, well, year over year, and I mean, it would be easy to crush 2020, right? Because like, for a lot of it, like we weren't even like really open. We were just selling beer on our like Shopify site, right? But
Interesting.
But we're crushing 2019 numbers, and we happen to have this like wonderful space that we converted to an outdoor patio.
Great.
And I think so when everybody else was shut down, we were able to continue, and I think we got a lot of new customers that way, in addition to people like being exposed to our brand now, because like, our beers are the best they've ever been because of how awesome our brewing team is. And I think, nothing's black and white, right? So I think it was just like a combination of like a year and a half of people like being exposed to our brand, coming and realizing, Duckfoot's got really good beer, and we've just done a good job marketing and building a good team, and it seems to all be paying off.
Well, that's awesome, man. Like I definitely wanted to ask you about marketing, because when you think of alcohol, right? Like, or beer, I guess I should specify. You think of Budweiser, you think of like the Clydesdales, right? And you think of the marketing and the Super Bowl ads that are $4 million for a 30-second spot, and like all the nonsensical BS that revolves around this is our brand, right? Be it monetary BS or not, because $4 million is a lot of money. How do you market? Not how does a beer brand market, but how does Duckfoot market? What's your approach to marketing? And because it's got to be important, right?
Yeah, that's a good question, dude. We don't have, in the 6 years we've been open, we haven't spent $4 million. You know what I mean?
How could you? I mean,
yeah,
it's insane.
It's insane when you think about how much money they waste on this fucking Super Bowl ad. God, that money could be better, used to serve the greater good,
Yeah, I always wonder what their ROI is. I mean, they keep doing it, so it must not be hurting. But
I think they do it just to,
or is it a write-off?
Block everybody else,
Okay, got it.
That's what from what I've known from what I hear about the way the macros work is they know that most of their beer goes out of code, but they flood the shelves with it just so it keeps other brands off. So it's
out of code, meaning it expires.
Like it expires, and it's better for them to actually have beer expire on the shelves than for them to just sell in what's needed, because it keeps other brands off the shelves. Holy
Smokes, that's a different level, man.
Yeah. So
that's like some political shit.
Oh yeah, or they're and I don't know any of this as because I've seen the numbers or whatever, but I've heard that they'll buy whole hop harvests out so that people can't get hops. Like they have money, like fuck you money,
Yes, yeah.
So, but anyway, I'm not here to spread rumors, but from our marketing perspective, we do what we can, a lot, we I don't know, we've built up we've spent a lot of time building up our Instagram channel.
What's been that approach? Targeted ads?
No, we didn't do, we've really done very little with paid social. It's been I think we're at like 30,000, 38,000. I don't know. We got it's a pretty decent size, Instagram channel. We don't do a lot on Facebook. We've just recently started TikTok, and in like a month and a half, we've like outpaced we've outperformed our Instagram channel, which we've been working on for like 5 years.
So that's really interesting. So obviously you've outpaced it, but did you hire a social media marketer and or somebody who spends their time working on your social media? Because if you're not doing paid ads, growing a following, what's been the approach? What's been the advice? Like, how do you grow your social media social media presence if you're not paying for ads or what have you? So is it just engagement, commenting, tagging?
Yeah, totally. So we try to build the community and engage with the community, and it's a challenge because the Instagram will change the
Algorithm.
Yeah, and which changes the rules of engagement. I find it maddening.
I'm a one-man band,
Yeah.
so imagine how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't have time. Like, I genuinely don't have time. Not that I'm complaining, but it's
you can't do it all,
maddening.
dude. Yeah, it's I find it to be frustrating, and my favorite thing is our mailing list, because our mailing list is our core group of subscribers.
Totally.
Who we are in direct contact with. That seems to be the best ROI.
Cool.
And so we've grown that mailing list to be a pretty large number, and we continually put effort into growing the mailing list and gaining subscribers. And so we put a weekly newsletter out that we're still a pretty local brand. I mean, we're distributed like all the way from like San Diego through the Bay Area and like Alaska and sometimes Mexico, but for the most part, the newsletter focuses in and around what's going on around at the brewery. So we're hey, come in and this is our tap list, and you can see what we got going on. So that really drives business. We do have a social media coordinator, and I've got 2 part-time marketing people that also work with me, and yeah, we're doing the best we can, but we don't do a lot of paid social.
Sure.
We're trying to get real fans.
There's kind of like 2 sort of questions I want to ask about your growth strategy, because one is, what was your growth strategy? Was it like, let's run things here in San Diego and then spawn or grow further out? Or was it just, I'll take anything I can get kind of thing? Like, I want to be in that bar. And like, did you have like a list of bars? Like, so for me, right, like I'm just now thinking about wholesale distribution. And now that I'm actually manufacturing my own stuff, I mean, my shorts were manufactured and those were in some stores and stuff historically. Right. But like with these new like Avant tees that I just released, like there's finally the opportunity to grow that distribution. So it's like, I'm trying to get in specific stores that I'm familiar with versus, okay, let me just run stuff in San Diego, because it's a completely different business model, right? Like with you, alcohol can be kind of everywhere. Beer can be everywhere and people will drink it. Like, I can't sell these t-shirts to 17 stores in San Diego, right?
Yeah.
It's just not feasible. Yeah. So what was sort of your growth strategy? And you guys were in Petco, right?
Yes, we were in Petco.
Which is where the Padres play, for those outside of San Diego.
So our growth strategy was we self-distributed our brand for the first 4 years, and then and our goal was to self-distribute till we became a target for a distributor that would want to pick us up. So we did that, and we were able to sell our distribution rights, and that took us to the next level in terms of coverage. So at first it was we wanted to be in all the craft beer bars that we could, and all of the restaurants that or bars that catered to a gluten-free brand. And then once we got picked up by the distributor, we were able to engage with larger customers that we couldn't have gotten to on our own.
I see. So they have those relationships established, right?
Yeah. So we've gotten into we got into Petco Park, which was a blast, because talk about a cool thing to do is to go buy a beer you made at a Major League Baseball game.
Unbelievable.
One of my other favorite, and this is not nearly on that level, but I love Phil's Barbecue.
Totally.
And so we're on at Phil's Barbecue, and so I love that you can go rock out at Phil's Barbecue and have a Duckfoot. The other so we're SeaWorld, we're at they got us in the zoo, and so those are all pretty big.
That was pre-distributorship, or that was post?
No, that was once we signed with Carl.
Okay, so those are the outlets that they'll get you into.
Yeah, and we're distributed by Carl Strauss Distributing.
I see.
And we just passed 2 years with them. So and we've been they've been helping us grow, and so they took us. Not only did they help us grow in San Diego, but we're actually being sold in Orange County, the Inland Empire, and Los Angeles with them as well.
Now, do they specify just in the Southwest, so to speak, or are they nationwide?
No, that's their territory. That's their footprint right now.
So then that would be from going from self-distributing to Carl Strauss level, then to, I guess there's another level to get to nationwide, where
nationwide is just basically building 8 million different distributors to patchwork it all together. So
is that how that works?
Yeah. It's crazy. So we would manage, in our first, 4 years, we had to basically manage our own, AR, accounts receivable, with who owes us what and whatever, and that it consisted of 500 different bars and restaurants, right, liquor stores.
Wow.
And now they do all of that work for us, so we just basically we sell beer to them, and then they owe us money, but they only handle those territories. So we're now in the Bay Area, so we have a distributor up there, but the Bay Area distributor only does San Francisco, Mendocino, Sonoma, Napa, and Marin, but they don't do South Bay or Oakland or San Jose. So we're working on getting a distributor to take us there.
Got it.
And then we don't have a distributor in Santa Barbara, so we need a distributor there. And
right.
So anyway, so it's you got to patchwork it all together, and they're
So how much time are you spending? I know, okay, so we met, I think you were walking to surf, if I remember this correctly. I think I remember the day that we met. I was walking home from surfing, and you were walking to surf after a day of work, I think, along Neptune.
I thought Nick Borelli introduced us.
But I think we were in transit surfing.
Oh, when he introduced us?
I think so.
Yes.
I was surfing with Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was surfing with Nick, walking home. You were walking to surf, I think. And that's how we met on Neptune. And then we're like, yeah, we should surf sometime. And then we surfed, I guess. And then we were neighbors and whatever. How much time are you spending surfing? Or do you snowboard? Did you get any days this winter? Well, 2020, right? Like 2021.
We did though.
Did you get up?
Yeah, we were. We had a great time up in Tahoe. We went up to Homewood with the family.
Amazing.
And then and so we had a good time. I actually got a couple days in. I'm super out of snowboarding shape.
That's okay.
Surfing. I actually developed a frozen shoulder, which is this like weird old person's injury. It's the weirdest thing, but like, I don't know how it came about, but it like totally screwed with my range of motion. But I've been lifting weights and getting back into shape, and I've been able to like finally start surfing again. The water's awesome right now.
Oh, it feels so good.
Yeah. So, I like yesterday, I got home from work and I went body surfing, and I've got this hand plane.
Yeah.
That is
They're the best.
The freaking most fun.
Yeah.
And the way, I looked at the cam, and, the waves were like, it didn't look like anything was going on.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what, I'll be able to body surf. So I brought my hand plane down. And I should have brought my board, because there actually turns out were some waves as the tide was going out. But I had a blast. I caught like one wave after another and I got this hand plane, and like, you can literally ride like onto the sand.
Sure.
And I felt like a little kid. Like I was like,
that's amazing. So, all right, when you're surfing hand plane, are you using fins or no fins?
I'm not. No, I don't own fins. I need to get fins.
Yeah, I don't own fins either.
I don't go out further than me actually like
being able to stand
and push off. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
But last summer, I brought my hand plane down to my daughter Quinn's like her school through a little like beach party.
Cool.
And the waves were like pretty big that day, and this guy brought his fins and I brought my hand plane, and he was my size, and so we teamed up, and so he took my hand plane out with his fins, and then I got to use his fins and after when he was done, and we swapped, and so it was my first time
game changer.
I'll tell you what, I thought it was scary as fuck.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I guess my fear came from the sheer momentum of riding down the wave with your arm out extended like that. And I've dislocated my shoulders before.
Okay.
And I'm like, here I am flying down this freaking wave, and my arm is like totally extended. And like, like when you get crushed, like you're like tossed and turned in 8 million different directions.
Machine. Yeah.
And I was like, I could totally see like me just like dislocating my shoulder, And so I thought it was, I was surprised, because it never occurred to me until I felt the force of hand planing down a set wave, like, on the outside, on like a big breaking day,
like a legit wave.
Yeah, like a legit wave.
Yeah,
it's totally different than when you're just like pushing off on like
from the sand.
Like, so do you know what I'm talking? Like,
no, that's why I asked, because I don't own fins.
Yeah.
And so like my wife and I will go snorkeling or whatever on vacation,
right?
And yet every time I have to rent that equipment because we don't own it. And we were just talking a couple months ago in Hawaii, like, it is really dumb that we don't own this stuff already.
Yeah.
With the regularity.
So easy to travel with too, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, so on that note, it was the question I, posed to you is like, do you have fins or no fins? And I'm a no fins guy thus far, but I'm getting talked into it. It sounds like.
the only reason I don't have fins is usually because when the waves are big enough, I'm surfing.
Oh, exactly.
And then,
right.
So
the
like,
hand plane's the last resort.
Yeah.
I
do love the ease of being able to go down to the beach with it, because it's so much easier to just carry a hand plane than a surfboard.
Well, and even as you go up, right? So like shitty waves equals hand plane, like kind of shitty waves equals longboard. So it's like polar opposites
I
of
know.
E's ability to carry.
and you know, somewhat shitty waves you could also hand plane on and be really stoked.
Yeah.
And because I gotta tell you, man, my smile was just as big, you know, and so like for all of the surfers that were out there, I think I was doing like 10 waves for every one of their waves, right? So like I was definitely having more fun. And like I even got barreled, dude. Like I got like, you know, I wasn't just like riding straight in on the sand. Like I was like hand planing down the wave.
I love it. All right, I want to talk to you about this like fish cover band situation.
Okay.
I have to understand how that like the origin story, and I had no idea. I knew you had a drum kit in your garage where we're sitting. It's behind me, and as a drummer, I'm like
Are you
everything.
itching to play? You can
Yeah,
get
yeah.
on there, man. Let's hit the record button.
Honestly, like after this, I might ask. I'll
for
hit
it,
you
dude.
up.
Yeah.
I need to hit you up, but because it's been years, and I might have to have you like video me for my wife because I don't think she believes that I play drums.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So anyway, this fish cover band. Talk to me.
So I've been a Fish, you know, fan, and we're talking about the band Fish,
Yeah.
right? PHISH.
Yeah.
And being an East Coaster, I mean, it was like a rite of passage, you know.
Well, and around our age,
right? Yes.
like-
yes.
it was one of the first concerts I ever went to.
And such a fun show, and such a fun band, and such a community-driven band.
Totally.
And so much to learn from there, actually. You know, I love them dearly. I was a Grateful Dead guy, you know, fan before that, and then I still am. But you know, my senior of my high school, you know, Jerry died, and I had, you know, let's say I saw 5 Dead shows that summer. I also had like, you know, like 10 Fish shows that summer, and then I just never stopped, and I went. And you know, have been following them and listening to them since then. I don't know. We moved out here, like you know, I was playing a lot of guitar. I've been playing guitar since I was a little kid. The
Gibson or Fender?
oh well, I started with a Fender, but I play a Gibson now.
Oh, you transitioned.
Yeah.
Usually you're one or the other, right?
And,
As a
I guess
drummer, I'm like
a Pearl.
casting. Yeah.
What do you-
Actually, yeah. My first kit was a Pearl.
And what do you play? What
Pearl
would you play
Export
now?
Selects. I don't own drums because I live.
If you were
next
to
door to
buy
somebody.
your dream kit, what would it be?
Oh, jeez.
I know I'm not supposed to interview you right now.
No, that's okay. Ooh. I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe a set of Gretsch.
Nice.
I'd get a Gretsch.
So the Beatles played?
I don't know what Ringo played actually. Gretsch, I always think of like stereotypically as those huge guitars that were Gretsch, right?
Yeah.
But like from a kit standpoint, I should know the answer to that question. I have no idea what. I feel like he was a Ludwig guy,
Oh,
but
maybe you're right.
just because of the era. But I'm gonna look this up.
I know that brand though.
I'm gonna Google that.
It's on the
Bring it
internet.
full circle.
So I don't know. I just you know, I was out here and I was like thinking to myself like, you know, I want to be in a band, and I feel like you could throw a rock and hit a Grateful Dead cover band, you know, and
Right.
and
Even here.
yeah. Oh, in San Diego, yeah. Like there's
See,
like
I feel like
tons of people covering the Dead.
reggae, Sublime, sort of the kind of ska. Like I feel like Southern California is that.
There is that.
Whereas I think of like Virginia and I think of Fish.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm a North Carolina guy.
Right.
You're a New York guy. I feel like Fish.
Hampton, Virginia, 1997. I was there.
Yeah, I think it was 98
Or 98. I was there
or
too.
99. I think I saw Fish play at Walnut Creek Amphitheater. Lightning Bolt paused the set.
Oh, you were there for that show, huh?
Yeah. Oh, so you know that show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
It's
there.
a famous show.
Yeah, that was one of my first concerts. Like, yeah, I was in high school.
So, you know, so they would come into town, right? And they played Chula Vista, you know, the Sleep Train or whatever
Whatever the sponsor is
Yeah.
these days. Yeah.
And then, you know, for the last couple of years they've not come to San Diego, and I was just like, And I remember thinking to myself, there are so many fans in San Diego that go see Fish. They're skipping us. There has got to be a way to get those fans in to see Fish. Like, you know, while I mean, if you go to
I was gonna say like Irvine.
well, I was gonna say Winston's.
play-
You know, the concert venue down in OB.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a Dead cover band that's been playing 20 years in a row down there, and there's like a devout following. Like, there's got to be that following for, like, you know, the Fish
heads.
people, but there's just no band down here playing it. So I put a group together and we rehearsed for like 8 months, and we played our first gig at Duckfoot on February 28th, 2020.
Your time is up in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And we so we rehearsed. Trey came and played at the North Park Observatory a month before that, and I got a bill made for my band. It's called it was at the time it was called Heather Hood and the Mr. Miners, which is a Fish song called Heather Hood, or no, excuse me, Harry Hood.
Harry Hood.
Yeah. So it was a play on there.
Mr. Miner. Yeah.
And so our band was instead of a 4-piece like Fish, it was a 5-piece, and Heather was our lead singer. So Trey comes into town. As all of the fans lined up outside the venue, I went and shook hands. This is not COVID safe, but I shook hands with every person that was coming into the venue and introduced myself. And I said, "Hey, I'm Matt. I'm the guitar player in a San Diego Fish cover band. We're playing in here's our bill." And I was just like, I put Trey's tour bus was parked out front, and I put the bill on his windshield wiper.
Okay, can I propose something as an interruption right now?
Sure.
Every bill you play, like every bill you have, you need to put your set list on it, and it needs to be shaped like a duck bill.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That's a marketing ploy. You're welcome.
I'll take that. It's
Go
a good
ahead.
idea. So we you know, a month goes by. I had no idea, but we rehearsed and it was our first gig, and we fucking packed the place, dude. I cannot believe how many people came from that like, it was shoulder to shoulder. We walked out and we played our heart out, and everybody was like nervous as hell. And I remember just saying, like, guys, like, we are rehearsed as we possibly could be. Like, we are as best as we've ever been.
But those are good nerves.
Yeah. And we went out and we played, and we had such a good time. And 2 weeks later, the entire world shut down and destroyed all of our momentum.
Okay, so no Standard H podcast can go on. Well, that I won't say no Standard H podcast, but we have to have some element of car talk.
Okay.
And I want to know about your Cherokee.
Oh, yeah.
Can you please tell the story? Because it's awesome.
Yes. So,
what year's the Cherokee?
it's my dream car.
It's red.
It's a 1995 Jeep Cherokee. It is the car I wanted in high school, and I happened to make some dumb decisions in high school and not get this car. It was actually like way out of my price range back in the day too, you know.
Totally.
But it's the car I wished I had. Like, literally, like, I remember all the cool kids had this freaking 1995 Jeep Cherokee.
Yeah, rich kids. Yeah.
It was like it oozed my persona, you know? And so I never got that car, and I never had a Jeep. And then I met my wife in New York City, and then
Shout out Katie, by the way, because she has a lot to do with the story.
she does. For sure.
So just
she's
for the record.
for sure my better half. She's amazing.
Cheers,
She's
Katie.
Emmy 3-time Emmy winning documentary maker, filmmaker, director. She's 3 times.
Holy shit, 3 Emmys?
3 Emmys, yeah. And
Wow.
so she's
I knew
super
she's
talented.
put in some work, but I didn't know it was like 3 Emmys deep.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! Are
So-
they? You have them here at the
They're
house?
yeah, I'll show you. They're in her office. She can show you. Yeah.
I'm done. Okay, so maybe that's a different podcast.
But the best, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you could definitely, and then you could interview her about her car, because this is really interesting. So her, so we started dating, and we, well, forget it. I mean, I'll fast forward. We got married, and we moved out of New York City, and we needed a car, and she was like, oh, why don't we put her she had her high school car that like was up on blocks in her grandmother's garage, like being preserved. So she
being preserved. I love this.
So she like moved to New York City. She didn't need the car, but this Jeep was her father. It was her high school driver's ed car. And it was this 1995 Jeep Cherokee, right?
A brand new Cherokee
yeah,
at the time.
And so the school, like her family needed a car, so her dad picked it up, right? And so it was her family's car. Her dad actually passed away of a heart attack when she was like a junior in high school, and but it was his car, so she's obviously got like super sentimental attachment to it, right?
100%. Yeah.
So this car was it was going nowhere, is going nowhere. And so it sat in her grandmother's garage, and because she didn't need it, but I mean, they are, it had all this like, sentimental value to it.
Sure.
And so we get married, and we needed a car, and we didn't have any money, but we're like, oh, for a couple $1,000 we get this thing back on the road. So, we get it back on the road. Like, I mean, there was a mouse had built a nest in the
engine bay.
Yeah. And like had like chewed through a bunch of wiring, and like the air conditioning, the whole thing,
all the rubber housing, yeah.
So we had to clean it all out, but other than that, like the thing was in like good condition, because like
hoses are cheap.
Yeah, hoses are cheap.
Yeah,
and it literally had sat in this garage, like not driven for like 10 years, like sheltered from all the elements. You know what I mean? Incredible. It's like if you like weatherized the boat and like
you just put fresh tires on.
Yeah, and it was all good. So we got it back on. So we got it back on the road, and like that was our car. And then we drove it, around New York City. I'm like, we're not like showy people. We're not like, like I know like
it's a 95 Jeep Cherokee. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah. We just
it's not a Range Rover.
Yeah. And then we moved out to California, and we put it on a flatbed and shipped it out, and I drove it to and from work every day. And then when we started Duckfoot, it was our delivery vehicle.
I was going to say, your self-distributing vehit
Yeah.
was literally you. I remember those days of you driving the Cherokee with kegs in it.
Yeah. We put the two back seats down, put a piece of plywood down, and we would put like 3 or 4 kegs in the back of it, and then go deliver it, go back to the brewery, like loaded up some more kegs, go out for another delivery. And then it was like at the point where we were having to do that like 3 times a day that we realized we needed like
a delivery truck.
Yeah. So then the car got really beat up, like, because nobody really cared about it like the way like, Katie did, and so like, it was, and it just had wear and tear.
Did she ever say anything? Like, why are you beating the crap out of my dad's car?
She definitely gave me a hard time over it, but like,
interesting.
It was out of sight, out of mind. Like, she didn't see it on a regular basis.
Well, it was gone all day.
It was, well, it lived down there.
Oh, true. Yeah, you kept it in the parking lot.
Yeah, we kept it in the parking lot. So we kept it in the parking lot, and then because we had our first son, we had to get like a safe car.
Right.
So
okay. So for those who are listening, I interviewed Wes Walls. Shout out to a previous episode of the Standard H podcast from Elite Finish
Oh, yeah.
Auto Detailing.
Right.
You guys share a parking lot,
Yep.
as it were.
Yeah. And those guys were kind enough to do the van that we bought from this like local jiu-jitsu.
They did the wrap?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. Which is, needs in need of a new wrap in case you're listening. But we are, it's been, like 4 years and the thing got its butt kicked.
There's a lot of sun.
It's a lot of sun in San Diego. Yeah. So anyway, for Katie had her most recent birthday and I said, what do you want? And she said, I want my Jeep back. So
from the parking lot.
Yeah, from the parking lot. And this thing it wasn't even like startable. It started, but it could go one block, which was over to our mechanic. The temperature gauge went like through the roof, like it needed love, right?
Right.
So we put a couple grand back into it, but I've been restoring it, and it is looking better than it even when we took it out of the garage. And
really,
yeah, and it's got like 170 or 180,000 miles on it.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So it's totally like back. It looks awesome. We're taking great care of it now. It's no longer in service at the brewery. But
you surprised Katie with it or no?
On her birthday, I surprised Katie with it. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. And she flipped her shit, dude. And we took it on the beach. And we drove it out. We drove it on the beach for sunset. We went and got had takeout in it, and
amazing.
Yeah, it's back in our lives. Yeah, and
I can't talk because my ears are flooded with my smile right now.
This Jeep is going to be I don't know. It's going to be Jack's first car. You know what I mean? This car is going nowhere, and I totally. I guess in one way I don't consider myself a car person, but in another way I consider myself a car person because if you love a car, there's no reasoning, right? And
no amount of money matters. Yeah.
And for me, it's not like a new fancy car. It's
it's a family member.
It's a family member. Yeah. And this car is going to be.
It's in the ICU. I don't care. I'm paying for it. It's on a respirator.
Yeah, we took it out.
Man. I don't care what the medical bills are.
We intubated this baby and we nursed it back to health, man.
Oh my God, I love this. I love it, Matt. This has been a blast, dude. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your
Honestly,
time.
man, I would talk with you for another 5 hours, bro.
Well,
we just have to crack another beer.
let's do round 2 another time and maybe hear Katie's story. Who knows? Man, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, dude. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I love Duckfoot beer, and that's not just because you're a homie. It's because it's friggin' delicious.
Cheers to that.
So, okay, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
See ya. Big thanks goes out to Matt once again, and thanks to all of you for listening. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show, and while you're there, if you don't mind rating and even leaving a short review, it helps way more than you think. Please give Standard H a follow on Instagram at StandardH_, as well as the podcast page at StandardH_podcast. Shout out to Jensen Reed and Super Beautiful for the theme track, as well as the clear audio for the noise-canceling headphones. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Standard H podcast in 2 weeks' time. Thanks again for listening.